Hello, hey, hi guys, welcome back to another video. It's Lincoln here. Wait, today, New Year's Eve, almost 2018. Me and my brother are going to be reacting for C is for clairvoyance. He's probably excited.
Yes, very excited.
He doesn't want me to show him on camera, but I'll put the link. Well, go check out his channel. I'll put the name to his channel in the description below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Let's go.
I'm so scared about that.
So am I. Pasta's scary.
I'd like all of you out there listening to this to try and visualize the following few sentences in your head. Imagine a woman walking along a busy street at a location that you don't recognize. It's daylight, probably late afternoon. You see a street sign that reads 26th Avenue. It's hot as hell. She is walking by herself, although there are people all around. This woman isn't you. You are not in control of what's happening. You are merely a spectator, seeing what she sees, smelling what she smells. You see as this person approaches an intersection. You see the cars flying by in front of this woman as she waits for the lights to change. You can actually feel the hands press on her back for an instant, before the rough push. You see as the woman falls into the street. She looks left, and you see the bus coming right towards her. It feels as though it's right towards you. Its horn blaring, tires screeching. You even feel the pain she endured for just an instant. And then it's over. That's how my power works. When I have a vision of somebody's future, I seem to live out their experience as though I was actually there, as though it was happening to me, but it's just in my mind, like you trying to visualize that woman being hit by a bus. Sometimes I can suppress these visions if I concentrate hard enough, but other times, the vision is so clear in my head that there's no escaping it. Sometimes I'm curious, and I want to see what happens. Other times, I'd do anything to end it. Before I get into what's currently happening to me, I need to share a bit of information about my ability. I have to be in the presence of somebody to have a vision of them. In fact, they have to be close by. I don't think I've ever had a vision of somebody that was more than, 30 or so feet away. I might be in a grocery store talking to the clerk, when all of a sudden a vision of that clerk's future appears in my head. It might be a trivial vision. It could be as simple as the woman taking her dog for a walk later that evening, or maybe making dinner a month from now. But other times, it can be something important. Maybe I'll see that woman crying while trying to speak at her father's funeral. Or perhaps she'll fall while skiing in a few weeks and break her leg. My visions span from being just a moment in the future to as far as a month away. Only on a few rare occasions were they any longer than that. Most of my visions are of the future, but sometimes they are of the past. Sometimes it's way in the past. Sometimes I'll be near an old man and see a vision from his childhood. As far as I can tell with my friends and family, my visions always come true. My visions of their past always occurred. Are they always true with strangers? I can't be certain, but I do believe so. Sometimes I'll go days without a vision, while other times I'll have numerous in just 1 hour. There never seems to be any rhyme or reason to it, to any of it. I was only a little boy when I became aware that these visions were true experiences of the past or future. I knew from my ability that my father was having an affair while I was growing up. I knew that my mother would often sit in the house crying when she was alone. And I knew a lot about my mother's past. I had visions of them all the time. I remember the day I told her about them. Things I couldn't possibly have known otherwise. I thought she would be intrigued by what I told her, but she looked appalled. "You listen to me," she told me. She sounded furious. "This is the last time we will ever talk about these gifts of yours. The last time you will ever talk about them. No matter what you see, no matter what happens, you cannot ever talk about it. I can't explain why. You'll just have to trust me." Her demeanor lightened a bit. "You do trust me, don't you?" I told her I did. And up until very recently, I had never shared even a hint of my powers to anybody. I had never meddled. Now, I'm going to start explaining what's been happening to me. And I think I need to start with what occurred last week. I meddled. It seemed harmless. It seemed so insignificant. I saw in a vision that a close friend of mine would lose a fortune in an investment, and I talked him out of it. That's it. I used my powers to prevent a friend from going bankrupt. I was specifically thinking about what my mother told me when I did, but I didn't think anything would come of it. It was too little, too harmless. Besides, how could anybody possibly know? But a few days later, I received a strange letter in the mail. The first thing odd about it was the name of the company which sent the letter. The mrrhyanjones Initiative. The name seemed vaguely familiar from my childhood, but what was written was even stranger. There was one small sentence written atop of the letter. "You should have listened to your mother." I mean, I had no idea what to think whatsoever. How could this company possibly know that I altered the future for my friend? How could they have known what my mother had said to me? I pushed the entire situation from my mind and went on with my day. I remember walking downtown and seeing a man who was clearly a drug addict. He looked up at me, and then I had one of my visions. I saw him as a teenager, years ago, talking with his mother. She was telling him about the dangers of taking drugs. He acted uninterested in the conversation. I only had one other vision that day. A woman beside me on the bus. In my vision, she was talking with her mother. The mother was warning her daughter that she just has a bad feeling about him, and that she shouldn't start dating him. This was advice the daughter clearly didn't listen to, given the black eye she was trying to hide with makeup as she stood beside me on the bus. It wasn't lost on me that the letter I received had said, "You should have listened to your mother," and that both of my visions that day had been of people precisely not doing that. But I was still trying to convince myself that it was all just a coincidence. The following day, I was no longer able to convince myself. I received another letter from the mrrhyanjones Initiative. This time there was just one word written. Revenge. I had a few visions that day. As usual, they happened at random. A man beside me at the 7-Eleven, or on the subway, or a waiter in a restaurant. One vision was of a woman having sex with her husband's best friend, as a retaliation to finding out he was having an affair. Another was a well-kept man who was clearly homeless in the past. He was lacing heroin with some sort of poison, as a gift for his two acquaintances. Both of these visions were examples of revenge. It was no longer a coincidence. The mrrhyanjones Initiative, whatever it is, was controlling my power, and things were about to get much worse. The next morning's letter simply said, "Supernatural." I had no idea what I was in for that day. My visions had never shown me such things before. Such horrifying things. I had glimpses that day of a world I had never known before. I had dozens of visions that day. I tried desperately to get home and lock myself in when they started, to avoid them, but it took me hours to get home, and I was bombarded by visions. A vision of a man who had lost control of his left hand, and it was trying to kill him. He was screaming in terror as he was trying to hold it back with his other hand. I walked by a little girl and had a vision of her lying alone in the dark at night, terrified. She was hearing monstrous sounds from between her wall, but her parents wouldn't listen to her. But something was definitely there, and it was coming for her. I saw a young man, in his near future, would be infected with disgusting crustacea, or something that had attached to his skin. It was like something out of a horror movie. A man who seemed to hear the last words of the recently deceased, echoing in his head endlessly. A woman who would become possessed by some spirit, and she would start ripping her own skin from her body. A man staring into the mirror in disgust, but it wasn't himself reflecting back at him, but some horrific entity. And much worse. Much, much worse. But I don't want to think about it any longer. I no longer want to write about such things. The implication of what the mrrhyanjones initiative was showing me was not subtle. This company has some sort of control over supernatural powers. They clearly control mine. I was supposed to have followed my mother's advice and never meddle, but I did. And now they want revenge. Mother, supernatural, revenge. But the next day, I didn't receive a new letter. Over a week passed without word from the mrrhyanjones initiative, and my powers went back to normal. Just the usual random, mundane visions from people I encountered in my day. Until this morning. I think it will be the last letter I'll be receiving from them. It said just one word again. Murder. And I only had one vision that day. Just one. When I was visiting my mother. It was of her future. I don't need to share with you all what the vision was, because you already know it. Her walking down a busy street. The shove from behind. The bus. It's probably even an employee of the mrrhyanjones initiative that pushes her to get their revenge. I know that she's going downtown tomorrow. That's when it will occur. And the question is, will I let it happen? I can save my mother, but then I will further face their wrath. All of us will. A company that seems to control powers that I can't even begin to understand. But I've decided I have to stop it. I have to. What kind of son can just sit back and allow their mother to be murdered? No, that will not happen. I'm going to stop her. To ask her what the hell this company is all about. To ask about my powers. To save her. To try and save the both of us. You hear that, mrrhyanjones initiative? I'm going to stop her. So bring whatever you have for me. Give me your best shot. I'll be waiting.
Okay, so, enjoy it?
That was interesting.
Yeah,
Different.
I was just drawing the entire time. Listening, but drawing.
That disproves how terrifying it was.
Yeah. We didn't even scream. Should we do another video after this? I kind of like them.
Yeah, that was fun.
Once I, noticed that the first bit was his mother, I was so shocked. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next episode. We both will, hopefully. High five.